Welcome to Consumer Lending Perspectives, a podcast where we talk to financial industry leaders about trends in consumer assets, underwriting, performance, customer acquisition, fraud prevention, liquidity, and more. Hosted by Jeff Bogan, CFO at Upgrade and FinTech veteran. This show delivers key insights on the topics that matter most to financial executives.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Jeff Bogan. Today's guest is Marc Butterfield, SVP, Head of Market Expansion and New Product Development. His recent projects include the launch of a consumer banking app called Millie, a transaction service called Ordem, and Ben, a card-as-a-service platform. Marc holds a bachelor's degree in business administration with marketing specialization from the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and we are absolutely thrilled to have you on the podcast. And I recently learned that in 2023, you earned the American Bankers Innovators of the Year award. So maybe we could start with that one and let me know how you got that honor.
Yeah, happy to be on here, Jeff. Appreciate the time. I got that actually. It's absolutely like anything, especially in banking, it's a team effort. So that was for the Bend by FNBO platform that we did. We did a banking as a service pilot where we wanted to go completely off script with our card platform and say, what if we built a cloud native API first platform that would issue credit cards? And the target market there were digital forward companies and fintechs that wanted to launch their co-brand card program. And so getting that built pretty much from scratch, we had a strategic partnership at the time with Marqeta, so they helped us get up and running for that. But getting that up and running and launched with our first partner in under 15 months was pretty remarkable. And we did that, on time, on budget, and in a safe and sound bank environment. So we were within our bank's own charter when we did that too. So I think that last bit is probably the most remarkable thing when I think of all those. But the team, unbeknownst to me, submitted my name for that award.
Of course they did.
Yeah, and I was like, well, that's great. And then we ended up winning, and went down there. Our head of technology on the Bend team and our head of product, Doug and Lori, were a part of that. And so all three of us went down there, and it was really great.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. Well deserved. It's frankly one of the reasons why I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Just your focus on leading digital transformation initiatives. And maybe you could start with, what is your mandate at the bank? And you are known as one of the top digital executives in the banking industry. How does that mandate translate into kind of what you do on a day-to-day basis and what your goals are and focus and so forth?
Yeah, I would say the macro mandate is to be the person in the room that probably sometimes annoys colleagues. It's, pushing ourselves, being a forcing agent, helping look at the market 3, 5, 10 years down the road, and say, are we positioned and preparing now for that? So I would say that's my macro mandate, is the be prepared phrase. But then more micro, which is on the partnership division team, of which I'm a part of, is our consumer lending side. It is really about looking for areas to expand our market. Either that's through new innovative channels or channels that we don't use. It is working with our partners and pushing them to grow in new and different ways, and then either picking new customer segments or new products that can meet existing or new segments. And so all of that is wrapped up into what our team tries to do. And we collaborate with the business owners of those products to implement those, test them, and see if it's worth something. And it's all the classic things you could think of: fail fast, iterate, test and learn. And it's really great, because the number one thing of collaborating with the partners and being clear on what we're doing, when to engage us, is really key to that success. But I would say those are what I would call my macro bank-wide mandate, and then micro mandate.
And what would you define as a partner? A partner can mean a lot of different things. When you say partner, what types of partnerships are you talking?
Yeah, so when I mention partner in that vernacular, it is who we partner with to issue cards. So we issue, the Universal Resorts card, the MGM Resorts MasterCard. And so when I say partners in that sense, I would say that that is how do we grow and expand our products with our partnerships with them. But to your point, when I also say partners, it is with partners with which we have a strategic relationship in that business. So Visa, MasterCard, Experian, TransUnion, Zest, or Zest AI platform, and others is working with them because it's, as you know, easy to get wrapped up in the day-to-day of trying to execute, and that's really challenging to do. But take a step back and give those folks on both sides of our partnership an outlet to say, well, do they have new products or services that they want to offer? And should we be analyzing that? And who's analyzing it? And we give some of the room to breathe for some of those products and partnerships. So like partnership expansion can mean two things, to your point: strategic partnerships with vendors, if you could use them that, and then strategic partnerships with our card partners.
And so how do you come up with what products you want to either partner to create or create yourself? I mean, do you have vendor partners coming to you and saying, I wish you could have this functionality? And then your job is to basically figure out if that's something that you can build in-house or if you have to go vendor to do it. Or is it more you see kind of common frustration across your vendors and you proactively say, I think we need a solution that does this, and then you bring that to those vendor partnerships? How does this stuff actually develop in terms of the need and requirement?
Yeah, it is definitely everything you said in terms of a mixed bag. If, for example, a single partner has some pain points or ideas, what's good about having our team is we can look across other partners and markets and say, are we hearing that elsewhere? And if we are, then maybe we should be exploring that. And so it's helping give some energy to the right focus areas is what I would say the number one thing is. And then it's also listening to, I call them different types of customers, because we have partners who are customers, we have our cardholders who are customers, but then you have, of course, employees who are customers too. And so it's listening to all those different vector points and saying, okay, well, where can we focus our energy on the highest impactful items? And then, like you were mentioning earlier, adding some feasibility into it. Is this make sense? Is it a win-win? Does it kind of align with things we're already doing? Because as you would imagine, half the time your roadmap items do align to it. It's just helping translate to the partner, hey, we're already doing this, because an outcome of something that we're already doing is something that you have said you wanted. So a lot of it's communication and just making sure the right messages are out there. But coming up with products and ideas, that's what I love. I'm a very divergent thinker. I like to take a lot of different things and then connect the dots on them. And so I've found a way to use that type of thinking in this role, and it's served me well.
Yeah, it's certainly why you have the reputation you have in the industry in terms of digital transformation. So when you come to a conclusion and you say, okay, we think we want to offer this type of product, and you find a fintech partner or any other technology partner that you think can provide the service, to me, that's kind of the easy part. How do you actually implement it in a way that works within your partner's infrastructure, your risk and control environment? You know, like that, the devil is always in the details on these integrations. And so, like, what is your philosophy around how much work you do up front before you enter into a partnership? And then what are the keys to success to make sure that what you think is going to happen actually happens?
Yeah, that's where wisdom comes in. And it's over the career at FNBO, I have been blessed with being able to do a bunch of different things because that is what I have wanted. I've just found a way to do that while staying at the same great organization. But what comes with that is you get the scar tissue of doing things and not getting it right. And then realizing, maybe I should include customer service when I'm rolling out a new product.
You're right.
And you learn that
exactly.
over time. And so then the next time you do it, you're like bringing in the customer service folks and saying, hey, before I launch this product, what do you think of it? What kind of questions are we going to use an example? So it really over the years has been that. But my philosophy, even back then, was be very fuzzy on the details, but really understand what you want and why you want it and be clear about that. And so that's kind of part of my personality, which I'm a very passionate, gregarious person when we want to launch something, but I also remind people I am super flexible. And that speaks to the philosophy of you've got to be able to willing to modify things and realize what can be modified. The example I use to the team a lot is if there are 10 things that should be done, the trick is identifying the 3 things that are non-negotiable. And the other 7, I mean, they can kind of be changing, and that's how you're able to execute on. So don't get, wrapped up in InfoSec or compliance or a certain way that we do things. Is that really necessary to not do because of you're clear on the what and the why? And most of the times you can modify, like I said, 7 of those 10 things and get them done. So the execution part is about being willing to be flexible on things, but knowing which things you can be flexible on is the key.
Yeah, I mean, like something like InfoSec is absolutely critical.
Right.
You have to have it. But there are different ways to manage InfoSec risk. And so I get your point that if you're at a large organization who says it has to be this way, but it may not fit within the parameters of the partnership or the way the product's going to work, and if you don't have flexibility from your partners, it becomes almost impossible to implement something.
Right.
And so
right.
how do you build that alignment internally? Clearly been successful. Is it top down, this is important to us, this is why Marc is sitting in these meetings, and that's what gives you kind of, I don't know if authority is the right word, but the credibility to get stuff done? And what lessons do you have for our listeners, basically, who probably face these frustrations every day?
Yeah, it is the learning for me has been, it is a balance on stakeholder management and when to get the right people in the room. And I always joke about, I never get it right. Like even after all these years of doing it, the timing, I'm either too early with talking to a group or too late. I'm never just right. But I would say knowing who to go talk to is the winning formula, and just making sure you can hit the right people. But the timing is rarely, I still haven't figured that out. If anybody does, I'd love to know what that would look like. Early in my career, it was if I went to my boss and my boss's boss and got the buy-in, it'll just kind of, everybody will, they'll have to do it, basically, in some cases. That is not a long-term sustainable career strategy, is my advice there. It is about collaborating with other folks, sharing with them you have a concept or an idea and you're kind of workshopping it, and be clear on you haven't asked anybody to do anything yet. And if you can build that trust and rapport with them, then by the time you're ready to present it to a senior executive, it's pretty polished. It's not perfect, but you've thought through some things, and you have to be careful what you say to executives on who said they were okay with it. And so that's what I've learned over the years is you don't want to speak for anybody. Maybe you have them in the room, maybe you just talk about what you're comfortable with talking about. But it is a nuanced art to the science. It's like, certainly there's a project plan and there's key stakeholders and stuff, but there's a lot of diplomacy, a lot of conversations that should be taking place over time. And when people trust that you're just coming to them for an opinion and you're not going to regurgitate that opinion to somebody else, that goodwill builds up over time, because then you can quickly go to InfoSec or compliance and say, hey, if I'm thinking about this, what do I need to worry about? What should I avoid? And then don't say to the executives, well, our head of InfoSec was okay with it. Like, don't do that.
Yes.
So it's important to balance those conversations with the key stakeholders and also get the executive buy-in. And that's the timing part that I said I've never gotten right. Like, I don't know what the right cadence or timing of that is, but just make sure you do those things. And I think you can find that the momentum then happens pretty quickly.
No, that makes a ton of sense. One more process question. If you're at the leading edge of innovation, more likely than not, a lot of the things you think are going to happen, you're going to have to bail on or not move forward with, or you're going to run into an issue. When you're doing that, like, how do you know it's time to pull the plug? This partnership is not going to work.
Yeah, I would say it gets back to knowing the what and the why. And it's kind of like a know it when you see it. It's if you're clear on the what and the why and what outcomes you want to achieve, the further away you go from that, and you're realizing I'm just trying to get this done. Like that's not why we should be doing it. And that's kind of it's being honest with yourself and your team. And as you know, the lies you can tell yourself are so monumental.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, and it's just knowing when to pull the plug and saying what success looks like. And if it looks further away, an example of that is the discipline. When I was running the innovation team, it was a really good forcing agent. Was okay, we can be clear on the learning objectives, but if we go beyond a certain amount of spending, we're just going to stop unless, there's a 100x potential upside. And we had a test that we wanted to do with a partner I won't name. And we were going along, and all the learning, everything lined up perfectly. The testing, why we wanted to do it, the learning objectives, but the cost was too much. And the team really wanted to do it, but they kind of wanted me to tell them that we all kind of knew it was too much. And I just said, no, this costs too much. This is going to eat up too much of our annual budget. And there was relief on the team.
Right.
They're like, if I would have said, let's go do it, they would have backed me because we had good trust there. But knowing when to stop and being clear on those limits. And that one, it was a budget number related. It was just triple what we had wanted to do. And we're like, no, we're not going to do it. Even though it's a good thing, let's stick to that. And we never went back. And I think that was the right call at the time.
Right. It's definitely important to have a culture where you're allowed to fail.
Right.
Because if you don't, then no one's going to ever take the risk to do anything. But I absolutely agree. You have to have that control that it's okay to fail, and you got to know when to cut your losses and kind of move on to the next initiative. So
yeah, for sure.
Speaking of next initiatives, AI, machine learning, shifting a little bit. You guys, again, are kind of leading edge on the technology side. Talk to me about how you're using machine learning and AI, how you're basically like, what are you exploring? What are you actively deploying now? How important is this as an initiative across the company, and how are you thinking about it?
Yeah, we've been using it for a while, AI machine learning on our modeling. So we're a bit unique for a bank of our size, where we also have a large card issuing business, as you know. And so we have our own modeling group, and exploring nonlinear models and being able to test thousands of variables versus dozens of variables in your models, and having AI be able to do that has been a sea change for us. And then the speed with which you can change models. Obviously, you don't want to get too crazy with how often you change it, but just being able to iterate on them and understand what's going on in the space has been great. So the AI piece has been very interesting for us. And then on the more recent generative AI items, it's really looking inward for us. So we look at our employees and say, where can this be most efficient use to you? Allow our employees to explore the different tools within reason on network. And it sounds risky, but it's helpful because you're getting tuition is what we like to call it. So if people don't do the right things, you can remind them, hey, don't do that. And I think, but seeing how they're using it on network helps us build, well, what do we need to build ourselves? So we're in the early days of wanting to deploy an internal chat for our employees. They can refine emails with it. They can set goals with their teams. They can do check-ins. And we want to have our own large language model to be able to do that. But it's built with a partner that we think is going to help us kind of figure that out, because we know people are going to use, Perplexity and ChatGPT and all those things, but we want them, if they're going to do bank related stuff, use ours. And it's like, upload your documents there. And we feel that is the biggest efficiency play that will happen. And then also it will help just make our whole employees more efficient and better at their jobs. So that's what we've been working on lately, and we're pretty excited about it. And the most exciting thing for me with that is a very well-run IT-led initiative. It's not something that the innovation team said, hey, we have to do. It was IT realizing there's a huge efficiency happening with their developers, and how do we expand this into the business units? And so it's been a great partnership with them.
And so the idea is basically to start internally with your own team, employees, understand the tools, but you haven't, for example, rolled out AI, generative AI chatbots to customers trying to interact with you yet or anything. It's really
Yeah.
internally focused. And how do you think, and what do you think has to happen? Like clearly, the bank regulators came out with some warnings last year about using generative AI to communicate with customers for very good reason. How are you guys thinking about like when is going to be the right time to use the tools that you're developing internally for employees and actually give your customers access to that type of information? And where are you in that kind of life cycle?
If our focus was to do it with customers, we would be doing it today. And the reason I say that is the blueprint that should never change is how you make things safe and sound for customers in a financial services environment. One of my favorite phrases is let the bureaucracy set you free. And so when we were doing nonlinear models for credit and I was helping with that, we told the regulators, we're going to use our same process that we do today for model development. It's different in how the model is being developed, but in terms of understanding the weights of those models, the risk in there, loan review, model bias, we already have those tools today with our models before AI. So just use the same process. And with generative AI, I think it's the same thing. If we're going to build scripts for generative AI to use to talk to customers, we should make sure that we have proper monitoring in place. And just like we do today when people talk to humans. And so I feel like we can do it. It's just the concern there is, I think specifically with generative AI, and it's like with humans is the hallucination piece. It's like, is it going to say something and go way off script? And how can we build better parameters around what the bot or generative AI should or shouldn't say? And I don't believe that, I mean, there's people claiming that those tools are in place, but I think it's too still wild, wild west to go external facing in that regard. But once you can kind of build guardrails around some of those things, I feel like that's kind of for me anyway, that's the catalyst that would help, but really be more customer facing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then what about credit? Like where are we in the credit environment? I mean, you guys have one of the most successful card programs in the country. You talked a little bit about some new, machine learning, AI tools in terms of credit model development. But what are your other big initiatives on the credit side that you're focused on?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it's around the focus is in part of my title, it's market expansion. It's how do we offer more products that fit the right customers to all the applicants that apply for our products, and what's happening there, and nothing to share yet, but hopefully we can share something in the next few months about that, of how are we expanding that. But I will say that gets back to talking to our partners. In some cases, what we're doing today, which I'm excited about, is using partner data to incorporate it in our modeling to make the best decisions possible. With our own bank, for example, we're digging deeper into deposit data and relationship data to make proper decisions there. And we have just the last couple months, we were just talking about this, we have above 70% approval rates on our customers incorporating this data. And it's something that being around 20 plus years, it's awesome to see us use all this data to be able to do it. Now, I think the next step is, okay, are they getting the right product for what they need? And how can we use AI and the data that we're getting to kind of transform some of those products? And that's kind of actively what my team is working on.
And so how do you, I mean, I think everyone would agree that more data is better as long as it's done in a compliant way. But accessing that data, privacy, there's different data owners. I mean, how do you create an environment where you can aggregate deposit data, credit data, partner data from everyone across the organization to really deliver that better enhanced credit model to move forward? I think that's something that a lot of institutions struggle with, is just, I know the data's there, but I can't quite figure out how to get it all integrated.
Yeah, I think definitely you have these enterprise initiatives to get data into the cloud, but are you engineering it in a way that can be used, to your point? And I think that's an emerging skill for a lot of banks. I would say data engineering roles. We have data management roles. We have IT roles that you put data into the cloud. But is somebody really helping put that in a usable format? And I think with the AI work that we're doing and have done, that is a gap that we need to fill. It's being done today, but I would say it's being done by exceptional people that are going above and beyond their current role. But I think data engineering is going to be it's been around, but I'm saying for banks and for us, it's an emerging set of disciplines that we're going to need more of, especially as we build out large language models and things like that. So I'm looking forward to us leaning in more to data engineering as its own discipline.
Yep. So you have this new credit data model that could be coming out in the next few months. What are the other big, I guess, either opportunities or risks that you see within the business that you're saying? I mean, your job is to look 5 years ahead, right? Maybe longer. What else do you see that you're thinking in the back of your mind when you're, driving home from work a day? Like, I need to start thinking about this. What are those things?
Yeah, I would say it is two things that I keep thinking about. I mean, going back to I don't know if we're still in a crypto winter or where we're at with that whole thing, but stable coins and digital wallets and tokenizing payments, tokenizing deposits. I'm fascinated by the recent talks around that, just government everywhere, and how that's going to make it even easier for customers to get validated on who they are and be able to move money to where they want, whether it's deposits or payments or whatever. And so I think about what is the bank's role in that? Do we need our own coin? Do we need our own wallet? Do we just leverage what's out there and enable? I think about that a lot. Like what is our role in that space? And then the same question for lending with everything that has been advanced forward with fintechs and digital lenders and buy now, pay later. The options for customers has proliferated in a wonderful way. And it's like, what is our bank's role in that? Is it feeding them all the different products? Is it consolidating them? And so we have a lot of partnerships with the networks. And so I wonder about that. Like, what is that going to do? Because what's not going to go out of style is consumers wanting to buy beyond their means. And so how do we make it easier for them, but at the same time, keep them educated and informed on this is what you're getting? And I wonder what the consumer behavior shifts are going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years. I don't believe a lot of people say, somebody's going to create a WeChat for the United States where it's one app to rule them all. And I don't see that happening. I just think the U.S. banking system is different than that. But I do believe that people are going to want some version of a consolidated view, but they're not going to want to consolidate all their stuff into one bank or financial. And I think that's right. So what is our role with that? Is it open banking? Is it just sharing more? And maybe that's probably the answer. But yeah, digital wallets, stable coins, and then seeing the consumer lending kind of future evolve is those are the three things I wonder about the most.
I mean, I like that approach where all you talked about is how are my customers going to be needing financial services? How are they going to be interacting? It's not, I think XYZ team at your bank has an interest in this, and so I want to go support them. I mean, you talk about like, what's your end goal? It's very clear that your end goal is serving your customers, and that's your job. And you need to really think about how do you create tools to do that. And my guess is that's the advice you'd give people listening on this podcast is like, what do your customers want? Less so, what does XYZ business leader within the organization want just because they have a pet project or something like that?
Yeah, no, that's right. I would say, talking to another product colleague of mine in the space, he said it this way, and I love it. So I'm going to take it. It is about assigning a customer value to all these things, and are you doing the right due diligence? But it is also, if you think of like a Venn diagram, it's assigning a business value to those things, and then there's a middle Venn diagram where those two intersect. Right. Where that's what you want to focus on. And it's, as you know, with the day-to-day, it's easy to get focused on one of those circles or the other. And so I feel like that's part of my responsibility is to kind of find that middle part okay, this is really what customers want, but is that what we want to deliver for them? And to your point, a lot of times you say no,
Right.
and you move on to the next one, and that helps making quick decisions. And then you realize sometimes that was wrong, and you go back and you iterate. But I think it's about finding a balance between what does the customer want, and then what does the business want to do. Right. And you want to be clear on those two things, and in that intersection, you can kind of find what the focus areas should be.
Yeah, and knowing when to walk away. I mean,
right.
I think that's kind of, we started with that. I think
yes,
that's exactly right. So shifting now, kind of last topic, just heck of a week in the markets with all the tariff gyrations and stock market gyrations and everything else. Like, what's your macro view on the economy right now? What are you guys focused on at the bank? What do you think our listeners should be focused on today? I know you're generally longer term, you don't think about, stock price movements in the last 3 days, but still you got to kind of, as you're framing what you want to do long term as an institution, the reality is you're dealing with, near term issues in the macro environment. And so how are you guys thinking about that and managing that risk?
Yeah, I would say it is, if you use that same Venn diagram, it's like, what are you seeing, and what are the early warning signs for your own customers, and what are all the external events happening, and trying to find the right balance of should you act or not, based on what you're seeing, if one is more weighted than the other. For example, if our customers, if all of our warning signs internally look green, like good, but everything externally, especially recently, doesn't look that great, do you act and do you not? And what I do when we talk about those things internally is, if you go back in time, not just the Great Recession, but any iteration of the last 50 plus years, I think it's about being prepared. But what banks and financial institutions typically do is wait too long when things get better to get back into something, or they get out too late. So it's about, okay, so then how do you take those learnings and say, how do you apply them in this particular situation? And I would say there are all these fits and starts in the market and the political environment and everything going on. I think it becomes more important than ever to have a good, I call it feedback customer collection system. Like, what are they saying in addition to what the actual data is happening? And you want to be listening for those stress points of, did people lose their jobs more? Are they working more or less part-time hours? Like, that's a good external indicators, how many part-time hours are out there. So I feel like we have a lot of good partners that help us with that, but it is important, I feel like, to lean into the qualitative data, like what are customers saying and what are you sensing about what they're saying, as well as being in quantitative mode, because that helps make you more prepared to make the right timing decision of, do I get out of something or do I lean into something because of that? And I feel like the qualitative piece sometimes gets underrated. It's overrated in the market, as you know, of speculation and what happens there. But when you're talking about your own customers, it's, do you have the right listening posts of information to see what's out there, and take that and then combine it with your quantitative data to make a really good decision.
So is that conversations with your customer service center? It sounds great. How do you practically do that for our listeners?
Yeah, it is. So digital, it's making sure that you allow customers to be able to openly give feedback if they want. For us, that's important, either in the app or digitally. But then it's also getting the right collection of data points in your customer service centers. What are they saying in this space? And then, and this is a topic a lot of people don't like to talk about, but it's important, is in your collections groups, what are they saying? What are they seeing? A lot of those folks are highly skilled, tenured folks, and they've seen it all. Talk to them and say, okay, you've heard these customers, like, what are you seeing in the space? And what are you sensing? And then combining all those things together to make the best decision possible. And then, of course, having the humility to know you're probably going to get it wrong in terms of timing. So it's just about minimizing your overall risk anyway.
But you're better off acting late than not acting at all.
Agreed.
Even if you're a little bit early, I mean, you have to have conviction one way or the other.
I agree. Yeah.
That's good. Well, this is great, Mark. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being a guest on the Consumer Lending Perspectives podcast brought to you by Upgrade. We welcome your emails to investor@upgrade.com on guests and topics. Please be sure to subscribe for notifications about future episodes. Until next time, I'm your host, Jeff Bogan, and thank you so much, Mark, for taking time out of your busy day to spend time with me.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Consumer Lending Perspectives. Subscribe for more expert insights and strategies from finance leaders. And share the show with your network. Until next time, stay ahead in the ever-evolving world of consumer finance.